and there was this little thing that flopped down. It was my belt, and my belt wouldn't stay up. So Mom took a safety pin, and from the inside, so you wouldn't see it, she pinned to my pants. And so I'm looking great. Little sailor suit, 6 years old. I go to class my first day, the advanced class. Mom was so proud, I was so proud. I was glad I made her proud. And I'm sitting in class, and suddenly I feel a rumble in my stomach. And I started to percolate. This had happened before. I knew what was going on, but I figured I can deal with this. I know, raise your hand. And the teacher said, yes, I need to go to the bathroom. So she told me right across the hall, I knew it. And I go to the bathroom, and I'm running for the stall. And as I get to the stall, I realize I am going to make it. And I reach down, and I had a waist in those days, and I couldn't get the belt undone. I worked so hard on that belt, and the rumbling continued, and I felt the explosion before I smelt the explosion. First grade, first day, imagine Krakatoa. And instead of molten lava, well, I'm standing there, and it's awful. I'm standing there, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And the leg, and then why did you get short pants? And so I was 6 years old. I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know what to do. So I'm going back to class. Where else would I go? I'm 6 years old. But I'm thinking, you know what? Just act nonchalant. So, and my desk was at, like, the door is here, my desk is here. I think, I'm going to slide right over here, sit down, no one will notice. And I'm covered. And I slide in the door, I get about 2 steps, and I hear shrieking. The kids are, hey, my God! And the teacher's, oh, and, she's thinking, like, what is he doing here? And it was nasty. They took me out, they hosed me off, they had some old clothes left over from the school play, and they put those on me. And I kind of attribute that to why I didn't do that well in school, because after that, if I knew the answer to a question, every time I raised my hand, she would say, go to the bathroom now, it's okay. So they put me back in the slow class right after that. They really did, So I dealt with it, but I think Move Every Idiot Forward, actually, it's not just for kids. I think we've adopted that in this society a long time ago. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of adults and Move Every Idiot Forward. You guys have probably, seen some of this kind of stuff. We had a newsman at WLW, and he loved to break in to broadcast. One thing you don't do is break into a Reds game. They had a staunch rule about that. He did it one day with a traffic backup. It was a nasty traffic backup, but he found out later on that they had a memo, the whole thing. You do not break into a Reds broadcast unless it's a weather situation that lives are endangered. And so he got the point. But he was still the kind of guy that, you know the type, you're watching TV, your favorite show is on, it's culminating, they interrupt, and the weather guy's on because he hasn't been on in 2 months saying, we had some drops coming out of the sky. We could have rainfall later on. And you miss your show, you throw a shoe through the TV set. He didn't feel it. You wish. So he was that kind of guy, and he, really worked at it. So this is all true. And I won't say his name, Pat was his first name, but Pat, a lot of you heard him many times, because they moved him forward. He did very well after this. He was sitting in the news. He was in the newsroom. I'm in the control room because when the Reds broadcast ends, I go on. I only had about an hour to do because it was, during my show, the game was on. And so Pat's sitting there. And I'm sitting in the control room. The board op is working the board, the whole thing. I didn't have to do that because I didn't know how. And so Pat, hears the teletype machine or the news machine dinging and blasting, and Pat sees it, whoa, and he looks and he sees what he wants to see. And what he did, he ripped it off the wire. He ran into the news booth, looked at the board op and said, "Give it to me." And the board op looked at him like, well, you know, I'm not going to get in trouble for it. And he gave it to him immediately. And the intro, WLW breaking news. We interrupt the Reds game for this breaking news. Pat says, "We have a report of a Toronado stolen at the corner of and he used to bastardize the way we would say the news logo was when news breaks out, we break in, and at the end he goes, and when news breaks in, we break out. And he ran away, but they moved him up. He ended up doing very well. You'll all know who he is someday. If you ask me later on, I'll tell you who it was. Another story about moving every idiot forward, adult-wise. This was at WDAE in Tampa, Florida. I will not use the word, but I'll substitute the word for, let's see, fandangle. I'll use the word fandangle. You know what it means. And there's another one, too, but I'll come up with it later. He's an angry white guy on the radio. You hear him all the time, right? And he's upset about this, upset about that, and so he's talking on the air about how, he just went on talking about how all liberals should be hung, and I'll be the one to help do it, blah, blah, blah. Let's take a few calls. He goes to the first call, click. Pause. Fandangle you. And he's a little upset, got an ego. And he looks down, sees his delay button. And the delay button, if I hit that, it erases what happened the last 7 seconds of what I say and what he says. So the host says, fandangle me, fandangle you, court soaker. Hits a button. He looks up, the engineer's going, ah! The engineer's listening in real time. He looked down and realized he had forgotten to turn on the delay for the broadcast. They moved that idiot forward. The last one involves adult story involves this. I do a character, Gilbert Gnarly, G-N-A-R-L-E-Y. You have to kind of swallow. Anybody ever heard that character before? You know what I'm talking about? Must be Northern Kentucky. He sort of, you have to swallow your adenoids to do it. He's not a prank caller. What he does in his telephone calls, Gilbert, is more of a, I think he just drives people crazy. Like I'd call a synagogue in, this was in Chicago, I think. I talked to the rabbi. Yes, my name is Gilbert Gnarly, G-N-A-R-L-E-Y. Well, what can I do for you? I just want to tell you how much I love your religion. I wish I think Jewish religion is a wonderful religion. That's very nice. And I'd like to become Jewish. I see. And why would you like to be Jewish? I'm tired of people referring to me as a genital. I call the White House as Gilbert Gnarly so many times because it was, hello, White House. Have you thought of your White House and the advantages of aluminum siding? This is the White House. In fact, I call the White House so many times that I had a friend who was a Secret Service agent call me and said when George Herbert Walker Bush was coming to town, he said, he's guess who's on the subversive list in Cincinnati? And what'd you tell him? I told him I got a gun on him right now. He's not going anywhere. So that was kind of Gilbert. He was an innocuous old man. And he would, do you have time for my life story? I don't have time for your life story. This is the White House. Of course, I'd never pay attention. Well, I was a cesarean birth. It was pretty normal for me. It doesn't bother me much. Except when I leave the house, I go out the window. another one.